Welcome to Module 5 of Climate Change, the Fight of Our Lives, from Emergency to Solutions. This module has the title Politics, Education and Truth. First, Relat will talk about how we can organize ourselves to avoid climate catastrophe, and after that I will speak about the role of education in this.
Welcome to this module of the World Climate School course on climate change. The title today is How can we organize ourselves to avoid a climate catastrophe? We will talk about the difficulties of our societies to take the necessary action to avoid a climate catastrophe and what we can do about it. My name is Relat. I live in Brazil, where I work on forest protection, reforestation and rewilding. I am a member of the Extinction Rebellion, and I'm especially focusing on saving the great Amazon forests in South America. I am your teacher for today, together with Hans-Jürgen Rasmussen, the founder of the World Climate School. We have known since a long time, since 1972, that we have a problem with overpopulation and with overconsumption and pollution. In 1972, a group of some of the best minds around the world, called the Club of Rome, published a report called The Limit to Growth, which was printed in 30 languages with 30 million copies sold around the world. The Club of Rome consisted of current and former heads of state, UN top bureaucrats, high-level politicians, scientists, economists and world business leaders from around the globe. Even before climate change was recognized as a problem, the report pointed already at the fact that a combination of fast-growing population, consumption and pollution would burden our limited planet that much that it would result in a huge crisis of human society in this decade, in the 1920s of this century. In this chart you can see how resource depletion, food production and pollution would directly affect people's lives in a drop of economic output per person and soon after a drop in life expectancy. And now we also know that the planet is heating up. The atmosphere temperatures will increase this century by between 2 and 6 degrees centigrade. Right now we are on track for the worst case scenario, also called the business as usual scenario, in which scenarios will speed past the danger limit set at 2 degrees centigrade. Currently we are at around 1.2 degrees rise, and already the effects are noticeable around the world. Although no one knows for sure, we can assume that organized human civilization probably is incompatible with more than 3 degrees average rise in global temperature. So we were warned, and we didn't do a lot about it. Here you see the front page of the New York Times of June 1988. And the headline says, "Global warming has begun, expert tells the Senate." On June 23rd of 1988, NASA's James Hansen gave his famous testimony to the US Congress, telling them that the planet was heating up, that the burning of fossil fuels were to blame, and that emissions reduction were necessary to stop this global heating. If not, the consequences would affect human society with more droughts, floods, sea level rise, and danger to food production. So we have known this for decades, but by and large things have deteriorated. Why? Humanity did come together to give it a try to face this global challenge. Several large global conferences and treaties have been negotiated, like the Kyoto Protocol of 1992, the Convention on Biological Diversity, the introduction of the Sustainable Development Goals in 2012, And finally, the Paris Agreement from 2015 to keep the warming of the planet below 2 degrees centigrade and preferably to below 1.5 degrees through voluntary national climate plans. But none of these actions had a substantial effect on the deterioration of our planetary environment. Greenhouse gases skyrocketed, forests are depleted at an increasing rate, and the world added 70 million people per year to its population. So while we are talking the talk, we are still on the road to hell. So while we had decades to do the things that needed to be done, nothing was really done at the scale necessary. And so how do we address this situation now? Because we have come into a very dire situation, because we have let things out of hand and time is running out. One of the reasons is that those who cause the problem are not providing a solution that matches the problem. There is no global authority that can enforce solutions. Everything needs to happen on a voluntary basis. Because the solutions are complex and politically very difficult to sell, people do not listen to the science and follow the recommendations to get us out of this situation. And to feel good, people find irrational excuses to delay action, which makes the situation even worse. So the question, what needs to happen to avoid a climate catastrophe? Well, what needs to happen is in fact a transformation of the way we live, a great turnaround of the way we organize our society. Much needs to happen. But what does this mean in practice? We need to cut the burning of fossil fuels as soon as possible, for sure. But we also need a water revolution, a food revolution, and an energy revolution. We need to restore nature and our landscapes. We need to create climate smart cities and climate smart rural communities. And most of all, we need a revolution of ourselves. We need to realize that we are all together in this, and together we will swim, or together we will sink. So on the political front, a lot needs to happen. Some governments are taking the right kind of measures that are needed to face the challenge, like the Scandinavian countries, and also the current government of Pakistan, for instance, or the government of Costa Rica in Middle America. But even they do not take the full measures necessary to avoid these climate disasters. The climate crisis needs a huge, urgent and sustained response from governments around the world, and it requires sacrifices, especially from those who have a large ecological footprint, which are the rich countries, which are the wealthy people around the world. It requires, in fact, the mobilization of whole societies to face the common threat. But this necessary huge response, similar to a mobilization in times of war, can hardly be pulled off in modern societies, where politicians want to be elected every few years by the people, while they keep the support of the most powerful forces in their country, like the billionaires, the large companies, the military and financial institutions. In general, even the best of politicians face the constraint of this short-term focus, while we need to deal with the challenges that will affect the future of whole generations. So we can safely bet that the current political structures and mechanisms will not be able to take the right decisions with the right scale and the necessary urgency to deal with the combined challenges we face, of which the effects of climate change are by far the most urgent. The media are not equipped to deal with climate change either, as a huge challenge because of many reasons, some of which are stated in this slide. First of all, climate change as a threat is invisible, complex, and difficult to report on. Also, many of the measures that need to be taken are counter to the commercial interests of advertisers. For instance, it would be good if we ate less meat, But how does that work with advertisers who want to sell their hamburgers? The two sides of the story in journalism that is, as a principle, always works to have a balanced view has been unduly enlarging the voices of the climate deniers, despite the complete consensus that climate change is real, happening now, and will bring a catastrophe if we don't act fast and at scale. Climate deniers have also been helped by expensive PR campaigns of the fossil fuel industry, which have pumped tens of millions of dollars each year in order to sow confusion. And the point is, with these things, only the slightest of confusion will keep people inactive. So you don't need a lot of pressure for people to stay home, in fact, instead of taking action. And the effects of climate change are most acutely felt by people whose stories doesn't get reported on, because right now it's the poor and the rural people who take the first hits more and more. But closely it will creep into the cities and into the centers of power. So we need new politics that can deal with this enormous problem. How can we muster the strength to change and make such an incredible makeover of society? Maybe first of all, we need to widen our perspective and see our lives as part of the great human journey of thousands of years. We have to remember who we are, where we come from. This way we can also feel that we are part of a larger movement of life. And we need to feel both humbled and honored to be part of that great evolution of our species. The American Indians made decisions based on the effect of 7 generations in the future. So we need to see ourselves as guardian of future generations and guardians of the magnificent creation of nature, all the beauty we have been blessed with. The second principle that could drive us are the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was adopted in 1948, and the World Charter for Nature, which was unanimously adopted in the United Nations in 1982. All humans need to become responsible world citizens and proud protectors of life on Earth. Based on these principles and the principle of brother and sisterhood, maybe we are able to fully take on the sacred duty of guarding the only home we have, our beautiful living planet. Voting every now and then won't do the trick. If you really want to play a part in the great necessary change, you need to live the change day in and day out. This also means we need to involve everyone in the change, bottom up, starting with our families, our street, our neighborhoods, our villages, towns and cities. Transforming our surroundings and the way we live needs to happen at every level with the great principles of equality and deep respect for nature, for creation, for our living planet. So to start with, we need citizen assemblies to come together to grieve the loss of quality of life that we have already experienced every day with the deterioration of our habitats, of our landscapes, of our water situation, of weather, increase of heat waves and droughts. And to come together to make plans in concentric circles, starting from our homes and from our immediate environment, but based on the connection with all of life. Think global, act local. So what should be the fundamentals of this new politics? First of all, we have to listen to the science. We have to speak the truth. We shouldn't hide behind all kinds of silly stories, because this is really a big problem that is coming at us. We have to declare a climate emergency at all levels. at the level of the village, the city, the province, and the state. And we need to mobilize all of society. This is a problem the size we can only meet if we are all in it together. And we have to keep in mind all the time and hold sacred the fundamental rights of nature. And we have to see it as self-evident that nature is actually carrying us, is giving us life, and therefore needs the care and the respect from us in order to keep future generations alive. We should understand that we are not owners of this earth. We are borrowing the earth from future generations who need to live here as well and need to be happy and live lives well lived. Only if we involve everyone, we can make the great turning. And with that we mean all citizens have to come hand in hand and take up whatever challenges there are in their neighborhoods, in their lives, to increase the resilience for climate change. Resilience about drought, heat, floods, and sea level rise on coastal lines. Only if we do this in community, we can find common ground and the strength to actually get us through these amazingly dangerous times. Because if society starts to break up and it's going to be everyone against everyone, then the disaster will become even much worse. Community is at the center of how we're going to get through this. And everybody should have as their most important principle to make life more beautiful and to make life more happy with every act that we do. So maybe we should just simply smile and realize that we have received the greatest gift ever given, and that is the gift of life. And we need to use it well, this beautiful gift. So central to this whole change is that citizens are involved in it and are part of what needs to happen. And that's why we are calling for citizens' assemblies. And we have seen in a couple of instances that they actually gave immensely impressive results. Once a group of random but well-informed citizens have been briefed by scientists about the grave danger of climate change and related crises and what we can do about it, they are ready to act with strong measures to protect the future of the nation and the young, halting business as usual thinking that makes change so difficult with elected politicians who are caught in a system. A recent example has been the French Citizen Convention on Climate Change. Here 150 people were randomly chosen from the French population and set together for 9 months to look at all the evidence and come together and to come with lists of measures that should be taken in order to face the challenge. It was a great experiment in radical democracy, and it was formed as part of an experiment that actually came from the Extinction Rebellion, but also early examples in Ireland. And the French President Macron said, we're going to use the output from this citizens' convention to make new legislation for climate change. Well, the outcome was staggering, largely unanimous, and huge changes were proposed to the way the French society, state, and rules operate. And huge measures were proposed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transport to building heating and cooling. And many other measures were taken. The list was incredibly long. Later on, you will find a link to all the proposals that were made by that convention. One of them that I personally like was that they voted to make ecocide a crime against humanity. So the killing of large stretches of nature, of natural habitat, would be a crime against nature, a crime against humanity. And what was very important also was that there was a lot of support to localize production and consumption and job creation, and to ensure that there was good health, food, and energy security for all. And a lot of measures were pointing at especially the protection of the vulnerable from the effects of climate change. So you see that once citizens are well informed, they come to much more radical conclusions than the politicians that we choose in our regular elections. So through these experiments with citizen assemblies, we found out, which we already knew, that most citizens are actually caring people who will work hard to overcome challenges and will be caring people for people around them, and also for plant life around them and animals around them. And we need to support the politicians who are doing their level best to take the necessary measures by organizing ourselves in these citizen committees everywhere. This is a citizen movement to avoid catastrophe. The enormous changes needed will not be delivered by huge structures doing giant things and huge schemes by states, but by the billions of people making climate change a priority, by billions of hearts, minds and hands, doing billions of small things to counter the threat of climate change. And we need to push with these committees the politicians to act with measures that fit the size of the problem. Because if we don't do enough, at some point the problem will get out of hand and we will no longer have any chance of avoiding a catastrophe. Climate change can only be countered by a mass movement for the protection of life on our beautiful planet. The challenge is enormous, in fact never greater, and this is a unique moment in history. We are in a climate and ecological emergency, and we do have the solution, because let's not forget it. All the solutions are already there. We know how to change it. The point is willpower. The point is coming together to decide to do it. And it is this human willpower, this human spirit, that can get us through this. And we can create a more beautiful world with this. More caring, more sharing, more equal, and more beautiful in touch with nature. And once you're on this journey, it will connect you to this human journey through the ages. You will feel the historic context in which this is happening. And you also understand that you are actually there to protect the future of generations following after us. Climate warriors are beautiful people. They are the beautiful people of this crucial time in history. Strong, confident, and committed. And together we can move mountains. In a time of emergency, new leaders are born. And you are those leaders. Let us rise together to meet this incredible challenge.
Now, what will be the role of education in this? Actually, it is quite crucial. First of all, we have maximum 10 years to solve this. And in order to make everyone work together, everyone needs to know the facts. Without understanding of the urgency and what needs to be done, there's a huge risk that quarrels, fights and opposing interests will dominate the public debate and prevent our democracy from solving these problems. Politicians will need to talk about scary consequences of climate change, and they'll have to introduce unpopular changes in order to prevent the worst-case scenarios. This will probably create resistance in the population unless people are well informed about these reasons, the reasons for these changes. And we need to revitalize democracy. We need to do it by making people more active in the solutionary process, not only via elections every 4 years. Therefore, in order for our democracies to be able to act adequately on our climate crisis and the looming environmental collapse, everyone needs to get informed rapidly. Global movements like Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future are already working on this, but they need help, and education is the kind of help we can offer. In order to do so, we need curricula that reflect the present-day situation, not the situation 10 to 15 years back. The situation is changing rapidly, and those of us who have been working with teaching for a while know that curricula tend to be resting on very old knowledge. Because the process of approving learning plans and curricula inside large school systems like the public schools in any country will take a long time. And therefore they are not able to reflect contemporary challenges and debates. Also, most public schools tend to strive for political neutrality, therefore neglecting issues that may appear politically controversial. And I think that themes like climate emergency, potential ecological collapse, and looming food and water crisis are politically controversial in many countries and among many political parties. If you are in a school system where this is not the case, then I congratulate you. You are in an exceptional system. I believe only a small percentage of school systems are like yours, but I would be glad to see that I'm wrong. So even if we need to work on improving the traditional school systems to be able to handle this challenge, we also need a new definition of the concepts education, teacher, and student. But of course, we need to work through already existing educational channels by rapidly creating curricula and teaching material for different age groups. In addition, if a small group of teachers at a specific school goes through World Climate School education, it will be easy for them to educate the rest of the staff at this school, after which each teacher is able to educate all his or her students. And the students can go home and be climate ambassadors in their families, among friends, and in their local communities, learning, teaching, and practicing solutions at the same time. Education is happening every time at least two people are meeting, and this meeting leads to new knowledge and or new and more focused climate action. Being a teacher is still a profession for those qualified for a formal title, but in reality, without formal training, but with solid knowledge about the climate changes, climate crisis, and the potential ecological collapse, and a solid amount of passion, then we are all teachers, and we can all start teaching parallel to our own learning process. Do not wait till you think you know it all, because this will never happen. You will keep learning new aspects of this. And nobody is perfect. So don't try to be. Just be yourself and do your best at any time. I can assure you that by doing this, you will grow and feel more and more empowered and happy about what you're doing. Remember, every venue, every area, every place where you meet other people can be used for teaching. Not only the traditional ones like schools and other educational platforms, but friends, families, neighborhoods, local communities, businesses, especially businesses interested in going green, and every person or organization that signals some curiosity to learn about this. Remember the teacher's formula. If one person can teach 20, then 20 can teach 400, 400 can teach 8,000, 8,000, 160,000, and so on and so forth. If you need more inspirational teaching tools, a lot can be found on the internet. For example, I just wrote the following words: education, crucial, solve the climate crisis, in Google search, and I got up a lot of inspiring websites saying the same. Education is crucial to solving the climate crisis. I suggest you just try doing the same, and I assure you that's a lot of inspiring material out there. Thank you. And now Nicola will talk to you about the role of the media and the role of the press.
Module 5 is about politics, education, and truth. Now, I'll be talking about the role of the press, the media, agency and control. What is the role of the press in addressing climate change, and how can we become better consumers and understand media better? Now, what is agency and control? So, agency refers to the ability to act and make choices, and control refers to the ability to exert power over somebody else's actions or choices. Now, the importance of understanding agency and control in terms of the media, people, the truth, and environmental issues is that agency and control analyze the power and influence the media is claimed to have over their audiences and their audiences over the media, their media. So what is the role of the press / the media addressing climate change? Now, the media has and always will have an important role to play in people's lives and society. And as our world becomes ever more digital and the media becomes more accessible, who has agency and who has control shifts and changes all the time. So the media's role in the climate change story has the potential to lead for advocacy and truth on climate crisis, or has the potential to do the opposite. So we can understand that with the control of the mainstream media and with the control of media in general, the way society perceives certain issues can be skewed and can be changed to what actually is. And the reason for this can be explained through understanding who may be funding or supporting these media agencies and the ideologies that they have. So understanding who funds, who is giving money to these media agencies, and the people sending out the news, and the people are writing journal articles and this and that, may give you a rough idea of who and what the ideologies being presented to you are about. So if they're funded by gas and oil companies, you can understand that they're not going to have the best and most truthful view on climate change or the effects of environmental destruction. So how can we better understand and consume media? Now, it might seem more doom and gloom, and it might seem that we have no control, but we really do. We can really make a difference, and we can really learn to understand how to consume media better. And amongst the confusion of the media and what the truth is, to better understand the facts and scientific evidence, it is best to consume media that is independently sourced and to think critically and do your research. So independently sourced media does not have a bias, so it's not funded by anybody, and it does not have payment or secret donations of industries who have ideologies that they want to run at the forefront of the story. So trying to source independent media and by doing research into the actual science, into scientific journals and scientific articles, is really the best way to get a wholesome understanding of what's going on in the world.
And now, finally, Satya Khalid will delve deeply into the relationship between climate change and education, viewed through the current situation and the current needs in Pakistan.
Hello everyone, this is Sadia Khalid, trainer for World Climate School and STG Academy Pakistan, Lahore, and social media coordinator. And today we will discuss about the module 5, need of mass education for the climate crisis. As everyone knows that education is the most powerful tool to change the perspective or to change the behaviors and attitude of the people. So that is why we need educational campaigns to tackle the climate crisis, which is getting more worse and worse in the coming generations. So we all know that what are the climate risks, extreme events, and its related issues. Uh, More than plus 35 million people in the world are affected by the floods. Ocean acidification is ongoing. There are the rising sea levels and the ocean pollution and many more phenomena are due to the climate crisis. Climate change threatens the ecosystems, the biodiversity, the deforestation, and threat to the wildlife. And more than 1,600 plus deaths are associated with the heat waves and the wild fires, and especially in the Australia and the of America, wildfires are becoming a very common phenomena. Out of 83,000 internal displacements due to flood and other extreme disasters, natural disasters, decrease in the global ocean oxygens, plus 2 million people are displaced with the natural disasters or weather-related disasters. 21 million people are becoming undernourished or having the food crisis due to drought and the shortages of rains. So why we emphasis on the climate education? And there are very a few countries in the world who are working on the climate education, or they have introduced a proper curriculum at the school or a college or university level for the climate education. So climate change or the climate crisis is not related to one nation, one country. It is a global, borderless, and intergenerational phenomena, and it is affecting all the global community. So basically, who are the responsible for the climate crisis? Of course, we, the humans. The human activities are making this issue more worse. So this is an urgent issue, and we requires the global actions and even the partnerships on the government and private level to solve this issue. So awareness of the climate change and the climate crisis, that why it is growing globally, and it is affecting each and every aspects of life, whether it is political, whether it is social, economic, health, everything is related to the climate crisis. So education is a necessary tool to address the climate change. And of course, education has an ability to empower, to inform, and to motivate the people to do something for the climate change. And there are many examples in the educational system that if they include it in the curriculum or they engage the community, especially the young people, they would come with the innovative ideas and the implementation plan to help with the crisis. So curriculum policy or the curriculum framework or guidelines are very important, and we need to update our educational system with it. So, social and economic impact of the climate change. We already discussed about the agricultural, water and food crisis, that relocations of whole towns. If an town is affected with a natural disaster, of course we have to relocate. Then the water crisis, agricultural activities. Of course, if our agricultural activities decreases, it will decrease the productivity of the food items. So, of course, we will also face the inflation if the agricultural crops do not met our demands. Of course, the consumer goods will rise. Then the extreme weather changes, as we already witnesses, diseases, health issues, mental. There are also many mental diseases that is related to the climate crisis. Fresh water problem of wars uh, will have assessed because of the limited resources. The countries will fight on the resources. A loss of the ability to work due to heat. Sorry, but if it will be increased heat level in our temperatures. Of course, we could not go out, we could not work. In the coastal areas, there will be less rains, and it also rise the sea levels. So these are the social and economic impact of the climate change. So Pakistan and climate crisis. First of all, yes, Pakistan is annually losing more than 4 billion um, rupees due to the climate change disasters. And according to a report from the Climate Change Ministry, our country already lost around 80 billion rupees from 96 to 2016, and that is due to the climate change. And there are many other strange phenomena are happening, especially in climate migration in Sindh, Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, and northern Gilgit-Baltistan. And there was an village in the Gujal in the northern areas of Gilgit-Baltistan, and due to the earthquake, there was a lake, Atabad Lake, and now it is becoming the biggest uh, tourist destination. But still, it was occurred due to the natural disasters. So these are many natural disasters in the world. There are many examples in which the people or the whole villages or whole town relocated, and there is an economic loss too. So almost 50% of Pakistani population is increasingly becoming vulnerable to the climate change, and that is very much alarming for us. And basically, our ministries has no official statistics because before the many years, we do not take this climate crisis a very serious issue. Now the government is becoming serious about it. So these disasters have destroyed the roads, the infrastructure, the agricultural crops, hospitals, and many, many more. And one of the disaster happened in Pakistan is the earthquake of 2005 and the floods in the 2010. Both have a very bad effect on our economic and social life. So basically now the government has initiated some of the environmental policies that banning of the single-use plastic bags because waste management is becoming one of the biggest problem of our tourist destination cities and even the rural areas. And then the water storage, sustainability of water, human waste management, preserving the forested land, national parks or the wildlife. But still, we could not see that there is a proper and policy to to save the environment from the degradation. So it is only possible by the adding the climate education into our current educational system. So issues in the climate education. First of all, we need to realize that this is an urgent issue that we need to discuss. And then we have to realize that education is a tool for change. Then we have to realize that yes, there is a great connection between education, and if we do spread the information and awareness in our coming generation through education, that it could have a very positive impact on our social, political, and economic changes. And we need transformation, and transformation could only happen with the educational system. Integration into formal education, role of teachers training. It is a very important role of teacher training. If we train the teachers for tackling the climate crisis, then eventually teachers will train their children to be more aware about the climate crisis and coming up with the innovative ideas to deal with it. And then the school infrastructure and the practices change, formal, informal education, and we do not demand only the formal education. Climate education could be implemented through many informal educations or the educational societies or the youth clubs at the school, colleges, or the university level. And then adding the technological tools for education, changing the educational policies, and then of course individual and collective efforts, because yes, could bring a change if one person start thinking about it, and then we always need a team or the collective efforts to solve it. The educational keys for combating the climate change. So we need a worldwide universal education. So we can give the first we can give the information, then the awareness, and then they could do something in a practical way for the climate crisis. Then strengthening the education in terms of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, because these subjects can really solve. And then the construction of school in such way that are eco-friendly, and the promotion of the environmental education. Environmental education, yeah, promotion of those subjects which are related to the wildlife, biodiversity, and the environmental protection. We need to promote that. So what is the role of teacher in climate education? So of course, teacher is the main focus or the main attention in the classrooms. Now the classrooms are transforming, and due to COVID, many schools have transformed their classrooms into the digital classroom. So we really don't need any kind of physical classrooms or the buildings or the big halls for educating the students or the teachers for the climate education. We can have many digital solutions. So we need just positive classroom practices both at primary and secondary level, so that it could become the permanent part of the attitude and the behaviors of the children at very early ages, because early ages are critical for the children to learn about their environment and start caring about their planet, because we do not have any other planet. We have to take care of this planet. So teachers can be supported and trained by providing the related teacher material uh, to talk about the environment. It's important how we can make the environment more sustainable. How could we solve the climate crisis? We could have the youth clubs or the environmental societies, and we can have also field trips, field tours, so that students can go out and they can observe that what kind of harm we are doing to the environment and how we can save our environment. And community engagement, youth engagement is very positive, and it could give very positive result for dealing with the crisis. And of course, we need to make a locally relevant climate knowledge, because America has different environmental issues. Europe has different, Pakistan, Asia has different, Australia has different. And yes, it is global problem, but we need to make it locally relevant, and we need locally relevant solutions to our problems. So what can be the recommendations? In Pakistan, students at all levels are made to study subject. But there are different subject, medical, engineering, maths, but they should be subject related to environment, so they could start thinking about it. So I guess in Pakistan, there is no such education system named as the climate education. So we need to introduce this subject. And basically, most of the times our teachers even skip the subject, the chapters on the ecology or the environment, or the or about the animals. It should not be avoided, and it should be given more awareness. So our message our messages should be in the local languages, as we have the 4 provinces, and every province has different languages. So we need relevant messages into the relevant languages. So every person, whether he is educated or not, he should know about that, what are the causes and effect of the climate change, and how it is affecting us. So as this is a burning issue, and we need serious attention, and we do not need innovative solutions with a lot of funding, and we are just waiting for the funding, and we are doing nothing. Small steps can bring big change regarding the climate crisis. And basically, we need the civic education, civic sense to be neat and clean, and climate emergency. And even our religion, Islam, is also giving many solutions to the environmental protection, and we just need to be very, very serious. So Pakistan is listed as the 5th most vulnerable countries affected by the climate change, and now it is a serious time to think about it. Our government should be very serious about it. Our private sector should be serious about it. Our schools, our university, colleges, and even our every citizen should think about it before it is too late, and we need the speedy actions. So, government to lead on addressing the climate change, and they should use the multi-sector approach. Only the climate change ministry of Pakistan is not responsible for the environmental protection. Even the whole corporate sector is also responsible for taking care of the environment. We could see that at the tourist destinations, at very high altitude hill stations, when the tourists went there for the recreation, they left their all the wrappers and the bottles of all these bottles and the carbonated drinks, lays, and even the corporate sector is involved in it. So they should they should realize about the corporate social responsibility, and they should all the corporate agencies that are making the products should have the eco-friendly packages that could reduce our single-use practices. And even in the schools, there should be no plastic. There should be ban on these products which are in the plastic packaging. So we need small steps that could really improve our air pollution, noise pollution, and other related issues. And it could be solved through the non-formal and informal actions, targeting very wide population. So climate change education should not be restricted by one subject, or the experts, that only the people who are studying the ecology, who are studying the environmental sciences, or who are studying the forestry should think about the environmental protection, or they should come with the solution, and others should be doing nothing. No, it is the solution must be solved on the problem solving and evidence-based thinking. We need the critical thinking and we need the realization. So it only happened by introducing the new methodologies, fun activities, and integration of the climate education across the system at primary, secondary, college, and university level. So this is all that what we need. And protecting the planet start with me, start with you. So there are many solutions which we can do in our daily life, and we could make a small act, small positive act as a part of our daily routine, and we start doing something for the environmental protection or the climate crisis. And thank you. That is all from me.
Now we've come to the end of Module 5. I hope you enjoyed the module, and I hope you learned something fundamentally new for you. I also want to remind you of the homework. There was some residual homework after Module 4, and in addition there's new homework here. You are supposed to follow the 2 links underneath this video in the description, links to articles which you are supposed to familiarize yourself with. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. Looking forward to see you during our next meeting and in the next module. Bye bye.